That uncomfortable question I started to ask many years ago eventually would see me in clinical depression. It plagued me so much. It got to the place where I really felt like we were just shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic as we ever tried to play this church thing. It was like we would pat ourselves on the back. It's like, well, we're going down, but look at the boat. Look at the way it's cutting through the water. It's beautiful. And the lights are shimmering. And the nice echo. But it's like, but we're still going down, you know? And it just troubled me. And I couldn't get out of it. Something about everything, and I couldn't put a finger on it, troubled me about what was going on in the church. Now, one of my key mentors is a guy called Pastor Wayne Kadira, and a lot of you use his devotion. He tells a story once when he was traveling out back, and he was out in the middle of the USA, and they were cruising around, and he comes across this antique store. It has this lovely porch on there, but sitting on this porch is this dog, this old dog, and he's laying on the porch, and he's fast asleep, and Wayne starts to walk towards the porch, and suddenly the dog lifts its head up and goes, "Roar!" and then goes back to sleep. What's that about? And he keeps walking around, he's looking at stuff, and a few minutes later, "Roar!" back to sleep. He spends 10 minutes in the shop, and every so often the dog would just go, "Roar!" and then back to sleep. Eventually he says to the guy, "Mate, there's something wrong with your dog." He says, "Mate, you need to take your dog to the vet." He says, "Nothing wrong with the dog." He said, "He's lying on a nail. There is one nail on that porch and he's lying on it." He said, "Well, why didn't he move?" "Oh, it doesn't hurt enough to move, just enough to whinge and whine about it." And that's where I ended up in clinical depression. I could whinge and whine about everything, but I still wasn't enough to make me move. And then the Lord asked me to come down and take a church. And things intensified. And I discovered things I didn't know as a secondary leader, as a senior leader, and that churches are filled with limits. Limits everywhere. You suddenly realize you've got debt, and there's a limit. And then you realize you've got no money to staff, and there's another limit. And then you've got these resources, and then you've got buildings that's getting old, and there's another limit. It's like there were limits everywhere. And the pain was just intensifying all the time. And it was so painful. I thought, I don't even know if we're going to make it. The limits were so extreme. You guys are church leaders. You know what I'm talking about. The limits were there. And this was to try and get to this brave new world. This is what it was supposed to be like, and these limits. And we look nothing like what you just saw at the start, the junction. That would not come about for several years. And it only came about after I could convince the elders to go with me on a journey and rethink church. Let's go back to the scriptures. Let's go back and see if it's what Jesus actually has in mind. So we started looking at everything. And eventually, by going on this journey, the pain became so intense that we decided to stop going and whinging about what we didn't have and started looking to Jesus, what could we do? And I think our fight has been and continues to be the fight for freedom. That's what I believe it is.